And although they were able to put out the fire in under an hour, none of the bunnies survived. This has been the Channel 6 Evening News. Stick around for the Coffee Milk Hour up next.
And I just want to report that the dogs of the neighborhood went to town.
Yeah, it was delicious.
It was.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Welcome to the Coffee Milk Hour.
Yeah, that. This is not the news. We don't talk about news things. Right, buddy?
Not yet.
We talk about other things.
Give me about 5 minutes.
I am Puffy. I am, as always...
I am Jerry. Oh, are you just going to explain your own stuff
I am
before
the best
I get
half
a chance to talk?
of the show. I'm just going to ignore you the entire time.
If we're going by body size, you're more than half the show.
Oh, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, everybody. We've got a good one for you today. So I think we should just jump right in.
We're going to jump right in. Okay, so... Guys, we're going to have a military parade.
I don't want to have a military parade.
In Washington, D.C. We're going to have tanks. We're going to have, like, men high-stepping through the streets. The Marines are going to have to learn how to high-step. They're going to be drunk, but they're going to learn how to do it.
The Marines can never learn how to high-step. Hell, I'm a vet. I can say that.
You can. Also, everybody knows that, whether they're a vet or not.
That's
Sorry,
true.
Marines. We're going to have a military parade in Washington, D.C.
So Trump was visiting France, and I guess they were having a military parade while he was there. And he was so impressed by it that he came back and hit up everybody in the White House and was like, yeah, we need to make this. And it needs to be bigger and it needs to be better. Because America.
Do you think, like, I think military parade, my brain goes, like, straight to Nazis. And then I'm like, what's next to Nazis? And I'm like, North Korea.
I mean, it's kind of like Nazis, and I know it was the point that was portrayed, but I never see Nazis. I always see Scar and the hyena from The Lion King.
That works, too. Oh, we're going to have that kind of military parade.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that'd be kind of neat.
With the hyenas and one lion?
Can we get Scar? Is that a thing? Can we get a singing lion?
That'd be tough.
I'm down to try.
Does anyone look like
Scar? How much is this parade going to cost?
I thought I saw a number that was something like $11 million.
That's good.
Because so not only is it like, oh, let's have a parade, it's like, how do we get tanks and weaponry through the streets of Washington, D.C.? And they're trying to spin it. I guess one option being considered is to hold the parade in November in conjunction with the 100th anniversary of the ending of World War I on November 11th, 1918, which is just a great excuse to have a military parade.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
We couldn't pass a budget.
Yeah.
And now we're going to spend $11 million on it.
For 3 weeks?
No.
2 weeks?
A day.
It was a day. Oh, yeah.
It was a couple of years ago, 3 weeks.
They had 3 weeks on the thing. Yes,
that's right.
Bad.
So we're going to have a military parade, guys. So, like, if that doesn't give you an indicator of what kind of president we have.
Good priorities.
Yeah,
First in line. I like it.
We're going to talk about some other things like filler content, like our superhero movies going out of style because they're boring and lame.
I disagree.
He disagrees
with you entirely.
But then Josh McDaniels blew everybody's mind yesterday.
This took over that segment?
Oh, it did.
Oh,
yeah,
God damn it, the New England Patriots.
We can always get to that another week. But this week, Josh McDaniels continued to be... Well, Josh McDaniels. Okay, so Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator of the New England Patriots, thank you, who obviously did not coordinate well enough to win a Super Bowl on Sunday. It was rumored that both him and the defensive coordinator would be getting head coaching jobs in the NFL next year.
Yes.
Somewhere. So... McDaniels interviews with some teams, and it has been rumored for a few weeks now that he was probably going to end up being the
a few months,
head
like
coach
2 months now,
of the Indianapolis Colts. Fine. So the Colts come out and they kind of like, oh yeah, we've come to an agreement. We're going to formally announce.
This is on Tuesday.
No, they said we're formally going to announce on Wednesday, I believe, that Josh McDaniels will be the coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Okay, cool. So last night McDaniels was just like, no.
Yeah,
I'm actually not going to take the coaching job. I'm not doing it. Do you know that he had already hired assistant coaches?
Really?
Like, as part of the Indianapolis organization, he had already made hires.
Wow.
And then he backed out.
So, wow. And there's nothing, there's no repercussion for that.
Well, he never signed a contract.
Right.
So the only repercussion is he leaves the Colts high and dry.
Right.
And...
He hired
and he took a boatload of money from the Patriots to stay the offensive coordinator.
Yep.
And people all over the place are saying he can't win without Brady. Mm-hmm. He's scared to go to another team. He can't win without Brady. There are also some reports that Andrew Luck may not play next year, and that may have influenced McDaniels' decision on whether or not he would be coaching.
I think it had nothing to do with the fact. I think this is what it is. I think Bill wants to get the team that he has to the postseason one more time before he retires, right? and he wanted McDaniels. He wants his best guys. He probably couldn't talk Patricia out of the job because they paid him a shit ton of money.
Has Belichick mentioned retirement, or is it just like people are like, oh, well, he's won 5 Super Bowls, he's been to like 8 Super Bowls or whatever it is, he's getting old, he wants to retire? Because what if Belichick just doesn't ever want to retire?
Well, I mean, the possibility exists that he wants to keep going for instance, but if I'm Bill Belichick, I've already made all the points I need to make, except for maybe, can I win without Brady?
But what I'm asking is, like, has Belichick actually alluded to retirement, or are people just like assuming he'll retire?
Yeah, there's been no indication from Belichick whether or not he's going to retire in the near future. I think that him and Brady are done next year personally. That's just my opinion. It would make more sense to keep McDaniels on, to have like as much of the core group as possible to make one more push, which is why Kraft offered McDaniels so much money. But that's my best assumption.
I mean, I can understand, like, you're losing your defensive coordinator. There are questions surrounding Brady. I don't know why. So you don't want to lose both, either Brady defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator in a 1 or 2 year period. So you want to retain some stability so you can remain competitive in the years to come. I can understand that. But like, first of all, this is a guy who's already had a head coaching job in Denver, and
yes.
I believe he started 8-0
in his
first season, and then Tim
09
Tebow,
to 2010, I believe.
and he drove it into the ground.
Yes,
and so he comes back to New England. He does well again, and his very next opportunity, he's like, "Oh, I'll coach Indy. Oh wait, no, I'll hire some people." But I'm not going to coach that team. He takes the money. What happens in 3 years when Bill Belichick hasn't retired and Josh McDaniels wants to go coach somewhere else?
That's a good question.
Does anybody take Josh McDaniels?
That's a good question, because if I'm an owner right now or a GM and I'm looking for a new coach, I'm not looking at the guy who just sandbagged an entire organization.
Right.
That's gonna be a blemish on his career for sure. So I mean, he's definitely gonna have to find a way to make up for it if he ever applies somewhere else. But maybe Belichick and Kraft convinced him to stay, and Belichick ends up passing it down to McDaniels. There's another possibility there.
Well, I feel like that's the only good option for McDaniels.
At that point,
but
yeah.
that means we have to assume that Belichick will retire. I think if Belichick gets another Super Bowl, maybe he retires.
Yeah.
But I don't think Belichick's retiring until he gets another one.
I mean, I can see that motivation. So,
and I just want to say, Bleacher Report has a headline: Josh McDaniels' heel turn reinforces Patriots' place as NFL's supervillain. And I couldn't agree with you more. Bleacher
it's kind
Report.
of perfect.
The NFL is now the WWE, and Josh McDaniels, along with the Patriots, have become the top heel. Thank you, Bleacher Report, for expressing what all of us football fans feel.
Thank you, Bleacher Report. Words not said often.
That's right. Moving on, next topic is, in fact, the Super Bowl.
Yeah, buddy. How you doing?
Baby?
How you doing out there, Pats Nation? Y'all all right? Y'all, have you recovered well? I want to say this. I'm not actually going to talk shit, because it was a very good football game. There was a lot of fundamental football played. You know what I mean? Like it was a couple of trick plays here and there, but it was over a half of a mile in offense.
Right.
You know what I mean? Brady, even though he loses, sets another NFL record for most passing yards in a Super Bowl at 500. They have that trick play from the Patriots that you don't expect, and it gets, muffed up. And then the very next drive by the Eagles, they hit it in the end zone with the exact same play. So, it was a good game.
It was. So Eagles win 41-33.
Yes.
The big stories coming out of it is Malcolm Butler does not play at all, and we still don't know why. We thought people thought it would be leaked.
Well, there's been speculation. There's been pretty consistent speculation. So there were a lot of rumors, and now there's like two big rumors. You know what I mean? Like, everybody kind of picked a camp on what they thought was accurate. He missed curfew, missed a practice, and in possession of, and the coach, so what we do know is that right before the national anthem, the coaches went over to him and they were like, "Hey, you're not playing." So that's why they had all those shots of him super emotional in the anthem.
Oh, see, I thought he knew ahead of time and he was just having an emotional response on the sideline.
Because that's why he was like fully suited up and whatever. So we don't know. We don't know what it was. Belichick's not going to tell us. It's not in his nature. But I understand it's a big story, but I don't think Malcolm Butler changes the outcome of that game.
I mean, so if he's covering Alshon Jeffrey instead of Rowe, you might be able to argue that he makes a play and a couple of the Eagles touchdowns don't stand in the first half.
So I had this conversation with a buddy of mine, right? That's what you would expect if it were a cornerback in the leagues of, say, Patrick Peterson, Richard Sherman, Darrelle Revis, right? Malcolm Butler became a superhero in New England in the Super Bowl against the Seattle Seahawks. I've argued this since that play happened. If you watch that play, right, Brandon Browner sets up a very key block on the outside that puts Malcolm Butler in the direct path of that. The play is made by another defensive player. All Butler has to do is catch the ball, right? The work's been done for him. Just hold on and don't let go. You win the game. So yeah, he becomes the face of the win. He becomes this.
I mean, you can't deny that he is.
I'm not denying that he is a good
though.
cornerback, and I want to clarify that, right? But he's not an elite cornerback. He's not a top 10 cornerback. He's done nothing in his career so far to even consider, in my eyes, like, oh, that's a future Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? He has some. Nobody is afraid to throw his way. Nobody audibles their plays based on who he's matching up with on a route. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're not intimidated by him like they are other leagues. So yes, if Butler's in there, maybe the pace of the game or some plays are changed, but I don't think ultimately it makes a difference because Malcolm Butler himself has given up some pretty nasty plays for touchdowns.
So that was probably the biggest story or the biggest contributing factor, at least up here with Boston. You know, why didn't Butler play? What's going on with Belichick? What's going on inside the organization? Did that play a factor in the Patriots' loss? But what I thought was great is that Tom Brady can't catch. Tom Brady's been around football for years and years and years, and he can't even catch. He looked like he was afraid of the ball.
It was there, man.
It was there.
It was there. He reached for it, but like there was no hustle. It just showed that Tom Brady, yes, is the greatest quarterback of all time, but he is nowhere near the best athlete of all time.
He's not gonna take a hit there. Like,
right.
I think if he's close to taking a hit, I don't think there was any chance that he even goes for that ball. The other thing is that so Brady, you know, he can't catch it. He gets out there, perfect ball thrown to him. But what was interesting for me watching the game with some Patriots fans is that they were like, if he makes that catch, that's the game.
Yeah, it could have been.
As far as momentum goes. And
right.
That's interesting. Like, what if Brady does? What if Brady makes that catch, picks up 10 yards, gets to the sideline, everybody's pumped up? Like, did that non-catch cost the Patriots momentum, potentially the game?
Definitely. I mean, you saw it on his face when he missed the catch. He knew that, like, he just put their team to a dead stop. When you're in the Super Bowl against this Philadelphia Eagles team, the person you want out there is Tom Brady. So when he is by design the key player in that play, all you have to do is catch the ball, go out of bounds. You're in. Yep. Your momentum's. I can definitely see that being like the play. The other one that I can see is that, you remember the lateral on the kick return inside of a minute?
Wanted to get to that.
That was interesting to me. Like, Bill has to sanction off on that being okay, right? Because Bill Belichick is ruling his team with an iron fist.
It depends on whether or not he is okay with his special teams coordinators making that type of play.
He has to be aware that the potential for that play to happen. So, like, what I'm saying is, under his watch, he was okay with lateraling the ball backwards inside the 15-yard line on a kick return.
And it wasn't pretty. It wasn't a pretty lateral either.
It cost you like 6 additional seconds. You didn't make any forward progress. You lost progress, if anything, because he went down. It was just a bad play call. That, to me, kind of extinguished any chance Brady had of getting up there, because now it's an 85-yard drive instead of a 75-yard drive.
Well, and here's the other. So there were some weird calls by the Patriots, right? So earlier in the game, and I want to come back to this, earlier in the game, the Patriots were like fourth and 3, or I don't know the exact yardage. They were on the 37-yard line, I believe, or 35. And rather than run Gostkowski out there to attempt a 52-yard field goal, they went for it. And I believe they ended up turning over. So that's a strange call. With 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, the Patriots used their second timeout.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, you're trailing. And you waste the timeout there, and then you get the lateral play. So there were definitely some suspect calls, interesting calls
It was weird to see from the Patriots. Bill Belichick doesn't mess up. You know what I mean? Like, everything, even in all of his losses in the Super Bowl, they're less about like a bad call that he made. I mean, he is pretty meticulous.
Well,
so
and in that situation,
had to be going on, in my opinion.
In that situation, is that, well, we've got Tom Brady, we don't need the second timeout. We're going to use it for defensive purposes or whatever, or is it? What's going on where you're forced to use your timeout 8 minutes left in the game, trailing in the Super Bowl,
right? And
you don't want to hold on to it. I want to get back to that field goal, okay? Because something that's interesting to me, and I haven't heard it talked about, maybe it has been, but so Gostkowski, he goes out early in the game, misses a 26-yard field goal.
Why?
Okay, misses it. So that's 3 points off the
Well,
board.
and it was a bad hold. The first kick was a bad hold.
It was a bad hold.
Yes.
But he did miss.
Sure.
Okay, so we have a 26-yard field goal miss.
Yep.
Gostkowski also missed a point after.
Right.
Hit the upright. 4 points off the board. And the Patriots don't kick a 52-yard field goal.
Which would have been easy.
7 points, okay?
Yep.
The Patriots had an opportunity on just kicks to put 7 additional points on the board, which would have made the score 41-40 with Brady driving down the field. And now he doesn't need to get to the end zone.
Right. Now he just
needs to get to field goal range. Patriots could win on a field goal.
It would have been typical Patriots fashion to win in a field goal too.
So I do think it's interesting that the series of events from Gostkowski between the bad hold, the miss point after, and then the Patriots choosing not to kick the 52-yarder would essentially have gotten Brady. They were moving, and Brady, Brady throws up that ball at the end, the jump ball. But if they're just aiming to get to the 40-yard line, we might have another Patriots Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Brady fumbled. He cost you the game. Empty hand. It was awesome.
You know what I loved? You know what I loved about watching Brady? So first, it was the only defensive sack in the entire game.
It was.
When Brady lost the ball, I remember thinking in my head in that Tom versus Time on Facebook, he's in there. He says something along the line, I never want to be the guy at the end. Was that one? And like in that moment of watching him fumble, I was like, holy shit, Tom Brady's.
I mean, that one was on him, but the loss is on the defense.
I agree.
There's no way around that.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Even though the Eagles, were the Eagles the only team to punt?
Yes, one punt in the game as well.
Yeah,
And that was the Eagles.
Yeah, the game was still on the defense. It was just a poorly played game. They couldn't stop anything in the first half.
He threw for over 500 touchdowns, 500 yards and 3 touchdowns, and still lost. He's the only quarterback in his that.
Yeah, and to put it in perspective, Foles had 3 touchdowns for 343 yards and a pick.
Yeah,
and put up more points. So I'm glad to see, even as a Cowboys fan, I'm glad that the Eagles won because I do hate the Patriots.
Yeah, but they set their city on fire, man.
Listen, so does every city. Okay, let's stop pretending.
I've never seen Boston on fire.
Whenever the last year when the Patriots won the Super Bowl, someone ran over a lady in the street and killed her with a car. Okay,
what?
Let's not talk. Maybe it wasn't a fire, but there was somebody.
Okay,
dead.
I was unaware. My bad.
It happened. Okay, Boston is not innocent in any of this.
Oh, did you have we?
So is this it for Brady?
I think at the end of the day, congratulations to the Eagles. Sucks to be a Patriots fan. Not in like it sucks to be you. Like I mean, like that's shitty. It sucks when your team makes it almost there and loses. You still got next year. I mean, shit, man.
The last thing I want to talk about before we get to our main topic is Nick Foles.
What do they call him? Big Dick Nick.
So Nick Foles comes in. He finishes out the regular season for I think he wins every game he starts. They lost the game to the Cowboys, but I don't think he started that game. Comes in.
No, he won.
That he started.
Yeah.
And then he goes and beats the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And props to Carson Wentz for the season that he had. But Nick Foles led this team through the playoff. There are quarterback vacancies everywhere. Where does Nick Foles end up? Or does he stay with the Eagles?
I mean, he's still under contract with them for a year, I think. So he's not sleeping. If I'm the Browns, the Jaguars, the Cardinals, who else has some rocky? The Lions. If I'm Matt Patricia.
Maybe.
Matt Stafford? How's Indy's quarterback situation looking?
Indy. I could see him in Indy. Stafford is fine. I could see him in Indy.
So
I would love to see Nick Foles in Cleveland. Nick Foles throwing to Corey Coleman and Josh Gordon?
That would be ridiculous.
And
that
you got
team would be
Isaiah
absurd.
Kroll in the backfield with
Duke Johnson as the pass option. Yes.
Suddenly Cleveland's looking.
The Browns have only been missing a quarterback for forever. It's the most depressing
for
thing
their entire existence.
I'm not. You know what? I don't even care about football next year. Go Browns.
Nick Foles goes to Cleveland, tears an ACL in training camp. It's just the curse.
Don't do it.
The only curse worse than the Madden curse is the Cleveland curse.
That's an accurate statement.
Okay,
but
so
sports are out of the way. We have a fun topic.
We do.
In that it's not fun, but Jerry and I disagree on this wholeheartedly.
I don't know if we do, but we'll see. We'll get there. So tonight's main topic is toxicity in gaming, and for the first time ever, we have a guest on the show remotely. James, are you there?
PewDiePie.
there.
Boy.
So this is our friend James Olden from all the way in Florida.
Hey,
whoa,
buddy.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Brother might have warrants. Let's
Give
not
them,
be throwing
give
around
them the
last
street
names.
address.
I'm
I'm gonna
so
tell y'all
sorry.
where he lives. He's got that good, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, Jamie O down there in Florida. We're going to keep it like that. So our main topic tonight is toxicity in gaming, and we bring James on because James is a gamer, and he can provide some insight.
James is a video game enthusiast.
He's a video game enthusiast.
I like that. That's
very
nice.
Nice.
Good. It also doesn't it doesn't
It's more
imply in
professional. I
any
can
way
put it
that
on my
he's,
resume.
it doesn't imply in any way that he's good. So it's also accurate.
Right.
Right.
So
True story.
So Jordan is a video game elitist. I'm a video game player, and
Top of the
James
mountain,
is a
baby.
video game enthusiast. So we're going to be approaching this from multiple angles. So, if you're part of the gaming community, you know what toxicity in gaming is. But if
Look
you're
at
not,
you, League of Legends.
but
Look at
if you're
you,
not,
Dota.
But if you're not a gamer,
Or Overwatch.
or Overwatch, which is apparently worse than it was, but we'll get to it. If you're not a gamer, toxicity in the gaming community is becoming this perceived standard for it characterizes everybody in the community, rightfully or wrongfully. For years, racial slurs, demeaning language, and homophobic remarks have been used to essentially cyberbully other players. So I remember, I've seen this. I've seen this not only from like people like that I'm friends with, but from like people online. But what I kind of want to talk about first is the evolution of this, right? So like,
Sure.
Like first I'm on my N64. Well, I never had an N64.
I did.
I'm playing PlayStation. I'm playing like Solo, Parasite Eve, or whatever, and whatever PlayStation games are out there. I'm not playing with anybody else. If I am, I'm playing like multiplayer on my system with like my brother or my friends, or I'm playing like 007 at a friend's house or something.
Right.
We're all in the same room.
Oh, GoldenEye. When you had to ban
GoldenEye.
what's his face? I don't want to say I want to say Mojo, but that's not what his name is. The little guy with
Oddjob.
Oddjob. Yes. Nobody could pick Oddjob because that fucker was like 2 feet tall and you had to crouch to shoot him.
So you've got everyone in the same room, and even though we might be trash talking each other, we all know each other.
Right.
We know the dynamic, and like we kind of know where boundaries are. So like it's just
It's coming
trash
from a
talk.
playful nature.
Right. It's just trash talk,
But
right?
but is it really though?
Yeah.
When you think about these face-to-face games, that even if you're playing on the same system, ultimately there is a certain level of toxicity, because if somebody beats you, or if you make a boneheaded move in a game, they're still trash talking you in your face. They're still calling your names. They're still making those same homophobic remarks. And then I know prior to being a video game enthusiast, when I was younger, I was actually considered a gamer, and I would go and play tournaments at places where we would play on PlayStation or Nintendo 64 back in the day. And these were people that I didn't know that were doing this. And I was 10, 12 years old, and they were getting in my face and telling me I was I don't know what your level of vulgarity is permitted on the show, but they were saying
All
some
of it.
very nasty things to me.
We're not even good enough for Sirius XM. You can say whatever you want.
In the essence of like LAN parties and like shit like that with friends and stuff, it's more of like the familiarity of who you're with. You know, like
Well, so the
if these are your
question-
friends, you're still trash talking them, but they're still your friends at the end of the day. So you're not going to hit a certain level.
So the question there though is it okay if you're familiar with people?
Absolutely. If all right, so like we are very unique up here in that our group of friends, we're pretty brutal to each other verbally. You're like openly like brutal to each other. Like nothing is really off limits for the most part. And especially when it is, like if something ever like just hits the wrong chord, we're like, yeah, well, it stops. But outside of that, we're pretty cutthroat with our like jabs, I guess but to us they're still friendly jabs. So there's no like malice or malicious intent there.
Do you feel the same way, James, about like the people you knew playing games with?
I don't. I don't think that just because you know them, it's okay to basically say whatever you want, whether you think you know what the limit is or not. We all know actually a player that the three of us have played with together, JB. We would say some pretty nasty things to JB, and ultimately JB stopped playing WoW. And I feel like a part of that is because we would, on a regular basis, tell JB how terrible he was at playing WoW. So he's moved on to doing something that he doesn't really have to interact with other people. He now plays Destiny, where he can just run around and do whatever he wants. There's no necessity to talk to other people because it's basically just run and gun. And so I know JB, like I was just hanging out with JB face to face this weekend. But even I've said some pretty terrible things about him, and I don't. As I go back and think about it, I don't like feeling like I was possibly part of the reason that JB quit playing well, because he was my friend.
But it was all your fault.
I enjoyed playing with him. I blame it more on Jordan than anybody.
I mean, I would blame it on me. If somebody's bad at something. You know what I mean?
So, and that was basically the transition. So like James was saying, when you get into a tournament situation, there are people unfamiliar to you and suddenly they're trash talking. And then you get into like Xbox Live or PC gaming. And suddenly it's like, okay, we know who we quote unquote know who JB is. He's a guy who happens to be in our guild. He's a teammate of ours. But then we treat him like we might treat our friends who might be okay with it, but we don't actually know JB. We don't know him as a human being. James does, but we don't. So he's hearing strangers ridicule his gameplay, and now he's moved on to other types of games, at least for the time being. So the point here is there's been a progression over time from like single player to same room, trash talking with friends, to okay, well, now we're gaming with strangers, but we're treating them either the way we treat our friends or worse. So I kind of want to get into, we've done some research here, and this is a big topic in the gaming community. So basically, just for defining toxicity, James, you're clicking, so I don't know what it is. Just for defining toxicity, there's basically two types. The first of which is player versus developer toxicity. And what we mean by this, and you see this a lot with like big upcoming games, like a new Warcraft expansion, or the latest Call of Duty, or Battlefront 2, where you have the game developer being like, hey guys, look what we're going to do. And the gaming community goes, that's awful. You suck. This wasn't what we were promised. We don't like the changes you're making. And that's like 10% of the people. And everyone else is like, oh, that looks kind of cool. But that 10%.
Disagree.
Go.
Like No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky is a prime example of, right? So, okay, if a lot of game developers, what I love so much about how games are distributed instead, developers these days are very, very good at community. Subnautica is a great development, or a great example. The developers over there actually had a website that you could go to when there's an early access, and they would start putting in all of the changes they would make. And they'd be like, hey, I did this, like, as the game was a live thing. But whenever anybody had a critique or complaint about something that was happening, they listened and they changed their game to better suit their audience and bring up that morale. So people, you can say, oh, there's toxicity towards developers because we're saying we don't like what you're doing, but that's our right as the consumer to voice our opinion, especially with these companies like Blizzard and Bluehole that invite that criticism. They say, tell us what you don't like and we'll work on it. I
want to get to Blizzard in a little bit, because Jeff Kaplan in particular has some pretty interesting quotes. But in regard to what you're saying, so a designer and programmer by the name of Charles Randall, who worked for Ubisoft and BioWare, tweeted out last September, and he said, the other day, a friend commented to me, I wish game developers were more candid about development. He was surprised when I said we are. The caveat is that we're only candid with other industry people because gamer culture is so toxic that being candid in public is dangerous. See that recent Twitter thread about game design tricks to make games better, filled with gamers angry about being lied to. So basically he's saying a game developer is like, hey, we'd like to push out this content. We're struggling doing this. Or, hey, we want to try this, but here are the limitations on it. And gamers just attack the developer for either not providing or basically the developers put something out there and are attacked by the gaming community for basically inviting players in.
No, I would argue that that's the minority of the game, if anything.
But do you think that the minority is loud?
Of course they are.
The minority is always loud.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And this is where the difference comes. And I think I read that same article that you did, Jerry. They went on to discuss how this is the difference between video game releases and movies. Movies, look at Marvel. Marvel's already announced their release schedule up to like 2022. Yep. But I have no idea what EA Sports is going to put out in November.
Right. Yeah,
and it's because people don't bash on movies like that.
Well, I think they do. There's a lot of backlash in trailers sometimes. Look at Black Panther that's coming out right now. That movie just came under a wicked lot of fire because they were like, oh, none of the scenes in Africa. This was supposed to be culturalism, and it was racist, I think, was thrown out there even at a couple of times. But my point is, it definitely happens in the film industry as much as it happens in the game industry. I think the biggest issue with this whole thing is that the gaming or toxicity in the gaming world between devs and players is put to a higher standard than it is in any other facet of our lives where competition. That's my problem.
Well, yeah, just to finish his quote, he says, there are still topics I can't touch because I was candid once, and it resulted in dumb headlines, misunderstandings, and harassment. So while I talk candidly about certain big topics right now, I know doing so would lead to another wave of assholes throwing shit at me.
Wow. It depends on how you approach your audience. Look at, again, I hate to keep using the same guys, but they're just the... Maybe I can. BioWare is usually really good at that. Usually, I know that the most recent Mass Effect game that they released wasn't a thriller, but they typically tend to listen and respond. There are plenty of devs out there who are being. Blizzard is one of the most open guys about like what their characters and putting stuff on the PTR and listening to feedback. World of Warcraft in this expansion had a lot of changes focused on what the community was saying. They even finally buckled and are bringing back classic servers, which is a long disputed topic. They did Q&As periodically during this to talk about things that the community was having, and they got positive feedback from it. There were complaints, but they used that to positively their game for their audience.
Right. So last thing from this particular developer, and then I want to hit on the classic servers, but so he went to a school. He said, I did a public talk a couple of weeks ago to a room full of all aged kids, and afterwards a kid came up to me and was talking about stuff, and I shit you not, this kid, somewhere between 13 and 16 I'd guess, starts talking about how bad devs are because of a YouTuber he watches. He nailed all the points: bad engines, being greedy, you name it. I was appalled. So from a pretty young age, like a teenager, is watching someone on like Twitch or YouTube who has an issue with like the gaming industry and starts going on about bad engines, being greedy. This is the best time for gaming ever.
Yeah.
If you think about the quality of games that we have MMOs, we have first-person shooters, we have competition across the board. Graphics are through the roof.
Esports is finally coming.
Esports are coming around, and yet bad engines. Like, what are we complaining about?
There are bad engines,
but. If the game company has a vision for a game, isn't it their right to put together the game they want to put together? And then afterwards, if people are like, oh, that game's not very good, I'm going to stop playing it, they have the right to do so. But do you need to bitch about it to the point where like you're attacking the company and the devs?
Do you need to bitch about Donald Trump that same way?
Yes, because that actually affects my life.
Right, but this actually affects people's lives in their own way, too. The same way in the world of sports. I watched a video earlier today where, I just saw the video. Jacob Copeland, I think, is a college prospect going to one of 3 colleges to play football on a scholarship. It was between Alabama and Florida State, right? His mother is sitting on his right wearing an Alabama sweater. He chose Florida State. She got up, and he was obviously, you know
right.
What I mean? That level of passion exists in sports. Why can that level of passion not exist in video games?
Well, it can, but like with a game, right? Game comes out, new Call of Duty comes out.
Sure.
All right, I like Black Ops. Call of Duty comes out. It's the latest one, which I actually like. It's World War II. Okay, I play it. It's not great. I'm just going to play another game. I'm not going to bitch about it. I'm going to be like, they could have done things better. But like, I'm not going to get on a forum and be like, you fucked up. Activision sucks. This is the worst game ever. You guys totally screwed me. Like, it's not personal. If I don't like the game,
it doesn't really
I don't
serve
need
a
to complain
purpose to do that either. Ultimately, at that point, they already have your money.
No, and that is toxicity. Definitely, that doesn't need to be there. But I think I think toxicity is too broad, and that it kind of just a thing. There's a lot of good that comes from healthy criticism, and I feel that gets overshadowed by people saying, "Oh, well, all players are toxic."
Oh, and I agree. I think there is healthy criticism, and I think generally, to qualify all gamers as toxic is bad. But I do think that minority voice is getting louder, and that's why people on the outside are having issues entering. To get on to I want to get on to some other developer stuff here. Jeff Kaplan is I believe he's the game director for Overwatch, and he came out and he said, listen, Toxicity in games is becoming such a big issue that we literally need to reallocate some of our people from projects that we would like to carry out to build things like reporting systems. He said, we want to make new maps, we want to make new heroes, we want to make animated shorts. But we've been put in this weird position where we're spending a tremendous amount of time and resources punishing people and trying to make people behave better. I wish that we could take the time we put into having reporting on console and to put that toward a match history system or a replay system instead. He said it was the exact same people that had to work on both who got rerouted to work on the other. The bad behavior is not just ruining the experience for one another, but the bad behavior is also making the game progress in terms of development at a much slower rate.
It's not something they're going to fix. They're not allocating time in, which is they're wasting. Toxicity in games is.
But if you have a player like JB, like that James brought up, where let's say JB plays a game, he reports a player. That player doesn't get banned, they don't get suspended, they don't get anything. JB quits. Mm-hmm. JB's not toxic. JB's not bringing anything negative to the game. Why is it that the player who's not offending other people should be the one to quit because they no longer enjoy the toxic atmosphere within a game?
That's
because there's no consequences to it.
Yeah.
There's no consequences anymore. And ultimately, at that point, the developers, just especially in a game like WoW, where it is a subscription-based game, they just lost a subscriber. So yes, I don't think that it's wasting time and resources. I think that ultimately, Jordan, they're doing this to try to make the game better, to retain more people, to make more money. That's what they're there for. It's a business.
What I'm saying is there's no consequence. I played League of Legends when League of Legends it was within its first. And if you don't know this about it has, in my opinion, the most toxic environment in all of game everywhere ever. It is terrible. I put maybe 8 hours into that game and I wanted to die.
The website ranker had it number 1.
Yeah, it's
most
pretty
toxic.
It's pretty rough. So I enjoyed the game. I liked the mechanics of it. It was fun to play, but the environment and the community was so bad that I chose to leave. I chose to no longer play that game. There are other games like it I can play. I don't have to subject myself to what others are saying. You know what I mean? I can just go do something else.
So you were driven out by a toxic atmosphere. Wouldn't you have rather enjoyed the game?
Yeah, but I also am realistic enough to realize that it's not something that's ever going to go away. No matter how much time and effort you put in to banning that community, you're never gonna permanently ban a toxic player. Because the same argument that says, oh, well, if we don't do something to make the guy who got offended feel better, he's going to unsub. If you do too much to the guy who's the offender, they're going to unsub. You're still going to lose money.
Ultimately, at that point, if you have one toxic player, they have the potential to get rid of 1, 10, 100 good players that are not toxic just with their behavior. And if I'm the developer in that case, whether it's 10 people or 100 people, I'll get rid of the one who's toxic over not doing anything and losing 10 or 100 subscribed players.
Right. So then I want to ask James a question. Play Nice, Play Fair was Overwatch's initiative. It celebrated the release of their player reporting system. It took them 15 months to build the system for console only. In the 15 months it took them to build that system, more than 480,000 PC players, 480,000 were hit with disciplinary actions by Blizzard, and 340,000 of those were a direct result of player reporting. That's more than 1,000 players per day. So Kaplan responded to these stats by saying to the Overwatch community in particular, like it or not, this is an the Overwatch community problem, and not just an Overwatch team, developer team problem. For better or for worse, we're in this together. We're working hard to make changes. I hope you all do too. So Jeff Kaplan, a game director, is looking at gamers and literally saying, you guys need to get your shit together. So James, do you think it's developers' job to cure the players' toxicity issues?
I think that we all need to work together. Ultimately, if you take it out of games and look at examples in the real world, you have, like in my neighborhood, we have a neighborhood watch program. The neighborhood watch program was built because while I live in a middle class neighborhood, we are close to a lower class neighborhood. So essentially in Florida, we refer to that as we are the neighborhood that they steal from. So we now have we have a neighborhood watch program. Yeah, we have a neighborhood watch program, and the neighborhood watch program is proven to drive down crime in a neighborhood. They put up the signs, the people walk around with their flashlights. We have people out in the street all the time, whether they're just walking their dogs or just out for a walk, whatever the case may be. They're everywhere, and we need community enforcement like that within games as well. We have moderators within games and, well, within some games, but ultimately it has to be the community as a whole coming together and saying, I don't like what you're doing to me, and I don't like what you're doing to the rest of this community, so we need to band together to get rid of you, or to force you to fix what you're doing.
I don't think it's you are never going to be. So here's the thing about gaming, right? Gaming is all done online. You are behind a computer, you have no face, you have no name. Nobody knows anything about you that you don't want them to know. They only know what you tell them and what information, as much as fake name, nothing else, right? You have pure, unbridled anonymity on the internet. And that's why you have such a level of toxicity. Because when there's no consequence, when you know that, like, real world, outside of your own sense of, like, responsibility, you don't have, that's going to be on each, I get. But if you don't have a face, you don't have a problem, I guess is the way to put it. And I'm not speaking that, like, this is how I feel about it. It's just, it's a lot easier to be hurtful or toxic when you don't see the reaction. You don't know what happened. When that person logs off, they cease to exist in your mind. On average, at least.
I would agree with you. I would say it is easier to do it, but also the community enforcement aspect will still work in a situation like this. I don't know if either of you know what I do for a living, but I am actually in fraud prevention for a major multinational corporation, and I found this out once I started working there. Every single device, whether it be an Xbox, a computer, a cell phone, every device has its own ID number. So rather than banning someone's account so that they just go make a new account, we start banning whole devices. Okay, you've had multiple chances. You don't want to fix this? Boom, your Xbox is now useless. Enjoy watching Blu-rays, because that's all you can do.
Right, but I mean, how much control do you
buy
have?
A new Xbox.
How much control do you have over? Let me ask you this: how do you get rid of toxicity on Facebook?
You ban people's accounts.
They just make a new account.
Yeah.
Right.
Heroes of the Storm accounts are free to make. Dota accounts are free to make.
That's what I'm talking about with the device. You ban the entire device. So
how do you ban the device, though? Do you, like, ban the IP that it's associated with?
Well, each device has its own ID. It's like a serial number, basically, or like
the MAC address.
Like right. So I can just probably pirate one. Is there a software out there that I can just change my MAC address?
The MAC address is built into the hardware on the computer. There might be a way to change it, but
there are ways to change it, but they're complicated and they're technical. And most of these people are 10 and 12-year-old kids.
I disagree. Most of the toxic ones that are, like, legitimately causing a problem, they're people who have been in this for a while.
I don't know if
have
that's
the skill
true.
to get around it.
If I get into a Call of Duty lobby and there's an 8-year-old yelling racist things, I don't think the 8-year-old's going to change his MAC address, and that happens all the time.
What?
You get the little kids screaming.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
every
you're getting the younger
know.
community on console, absolutely. His parents think that, I'll keep them off the computer because it's safer when it's not.
So Jordan, just to finish up developers, like, what do you think of this, right? So this is on an Overwatch forum. A player posts disruptive gameplay in quick play. What? He got suspended. So much for the reports being verified. Jesus, you aren't even safe in quick play. The system is clearly automated and abusable. How do you even be disruptive in quick play? And Jeff Kaplan, the game director, responded to him, and he said, "We checked the IP address of the account you posted from and found a suspended account. That account has a total of 2,247 complaints filed against it, making it one of the worst offending accounts we've seen. The account has also been silenced for a total of 9,216 hours because game developers can actually monitor how many people mute you."
Right.
Continue, quote, "There are 3 gameplay suspensions on the account as well as 7 silences against this account. These are for abusive chat and or spam. There's also a manual GM account suspension for massive griefing levied. So I'm not sure if that's the account you're referring to or not, but someone from your IP has been a less than ideal Overwatch citizen. If that's not your account, please let us know, blah, 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 blah." So a player with 2,000 complaints against him, he should not be playing Overwatch anymore.
Here's all these terrible things you've done.
And what the step
just
should
in case
be,
it's not you, here's how to fix it.
The step should be banning the credit card. "We will no longer accept payments from this credit card. We don't want your business anymore." Done.
I mean,
the problem with banning a credit card is
PayPal.
ultimately nope. It's not even PayPal, because you can ban PayPal too, or PayPal accounts. But what you run into when you start banning credit cards is they just go to their bank. "Hey, I lost that card." and then they issue a new card.
New card
and the card
number.
has a new number, new expiration date, new CVV code on the back. So now it's a brand new person. You have to ban the address that the card is attached to.
I know that Blizzard in general is very good at blocking IP addresses. I know that people whose accounts have been banned and stuff like that have a very difficult time creating second accounts if they're still playing from the same IP, so the account's based the same IP. And I know something. Know? Well, they do. Although with VPN technology now, who knows? Okay, so
you know for a fact that the two of you got banned and you both created new accounts.
Did, and it was easy.
I didn't have a new account.
I had a new account. We made new accounts.
Did we?
We did.
You definitely made new accounts. Remember.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
And it was
that
easy
should
as
not
pie.
be allowed to happen.
It was right back in the game.
But you were using the same computer, right?
To be fair, we weren't banned for like toxic exploiting the game, but that's a different story. Look, here's my thing, right? I'm gonna put these together. Here's my issue with toxicity in gaming and the way that it's being addressed. No, because everybody looks at the video game. The toxicity in the video game community is one of the worst problems that currently affecting It's a big deal out there. You know what I mean? Like you're hearing about it.
Yes, and you have game directors directly addressing it.
Right. Why is it that there's this like demand for a change when in the football you have an entire community of fans throwing beers at another team's fans because they happen to like another team. You have people who have been straight up stabbed, shot, hit with cars over their team. Religions have had wars against one another over it. There was the 100-hour war or something like that between Turkey and someone over a football match, a soccer match. It was a war. They attacked each other over a sport. So why is it such an issue in the video game for like name calling?
Because it's treated differently than every other entertainment industry.
I don't think it is. I think it's being treated in that it's being focused on more.
Well, it's also that, okay, if I'm at a football game, right, and I'm a Cowboys fan. Let's say I'm at Cowboys Stadium for whatever reason watching a game, and there's an Eagles fan next to me. If I stab the Eagles fan, I'm going to jail. But you'll be
forgiven.
Yes. If I bully someone in a video game, if I'm obnoxious, if I ruin their experience, if I essentially steal their time because they're playing a game, that's their rec time, they paid to play that game, and I'm ruining their experience for them, I face no consequence. None. And I think the issue, and I want to get into player versus player toxicity in a second here, but I think the issue is that like why it's a problem in gaming because there is no accountability at all. If you kill somebody out on the street, whether it be for political, religious, or sports-related reasons, there are real-world consequences, which is why...
Because it's a real-world action.
Right.
This isn't a real-world action.
It absolutely is.
It can be.
We will get there.
When you're super, super toxic, it can be. Like, if you can, yes, there's the potential to exist that you could be responsible for. That's fine. But because that potential exists, doesn't mean that I shouldn't be able to look at somebody in a game like, let's say, World of Warcraft, where, like, you need to have a team of people who are good at what they do to progress. And if I build my team and someone on it is bad, and I bench them, and they say, well, why am I benched? I'm not going to say, well, I just want to give somebody else an opportunity. No, you're bad. You are not good enough to do. Please go somewhere else.
Okay. Keeping with World of Warcraft, real quick, Terry, let me just address this. Yes, if you build a mythic team in World of Warcraft, yes, you have every right to bring in the best team you can put together. But how many times have you been in an LFR and seen someone that was underperforming and people trying to kick him because he didn't know the fight, because it's LFR, because that's where you're supposed to go to learn the fight, especially if you're a casual player. Like I always considered myself a casual player, except for like 6 months, 2 years ago that I wasn't a casual player, that I was the greatest hunter on the server. But anyway, that's a whole different level right there. While I don't agree that you should be held accountable if you say something mean to somebody on the internet and they go and kill themselves, you shouldn't be held accountable for that because that's stupid. They could have just walked away from the computer at that point. It's still being a dick is being a dick. And there's no room in this world for that. We have enough dicks already.
Yes.
Right, no, yeah, absolutely. Being a dick is being a dick, but there's a difference, I think, being a dick, and that's included within this toxicity argument.
So I want to get back to this facet of player versus player toxicity, but before we get into the discussion, I just want to go over, for the non-gamers, what we're dealing with here. So player versus player toxicity, like player versus developer toxicity, there's a couple of different facets, okay? So forms of toxicity can be very general. It can be whining. If you complain all the time about everything, that can be toxic. Obviously, name calling, racial slurs, homophobic slurs. Griefing is basically just instigating people. You are there just to make other people mad. That's your sole purpose in life. There's something called boosting, which is where you intentionally lower your level through like throwing matches and losing games for other teams to then gain advantage in like ranked matches. So you lower your skill level so that you can then go kill lower level people. And then there's something that I didn't find a lot in what I researched, but what I'm offering up is competitive toxicity or elitism in gaming.
Jordan.
And this would be like gaming based on meta being like the primal or optimal setup for a game, or exclusion based on character or skill set, etc. So that's what we're talking about a little bit right there, right? So, I mean, I think all of us have probably experienced whining, name calling, racial slurring, griefing. If you play like Halo, or games like that,
it's
boosting,
second nature in those games.
Definitely. And we've always just accepted it as something that
because it's something that you can't control, right? Because it's in the same way that we can't stop someone. You can't stop on a public news Facebook post about something. You cannot stop the left and the right from going at each other, just like you can't stop people from going at each other's throats in video games.
All right, so now we've done the overview. To get back to what we were talking about there, so. For those who don't know World of Warcraft, mythic level difficulty is the highest level difficulty. LFR is called Looking for Raid, and it's your entry level raid. It was literally created for people who did not have the time or ability to do the actual raid content, which is basically like, hey, my team is going to go kill that guy, and it takes, like between 5 and 15 minutes worth of time and lots of coordination and a ton of strategy and research, like literally research to like kill these bosses. So a few years ago, many years ago now, many expansions ago, World of Warcraft said, we're going to introduce LFR for your casual gamer. And the point was that they could experience the content and learn the content and not be thrown out of the group. Sure. So James is saying like, oh yeah, they're there, and I've seen people get tossed from LFR, and
same,
and
I've done the tossing.
But when James was talking about it, Jordan was like shaking his head like, no, you should be able to throw players out of LFR
because that goes back to the devs, right? So the devs said, hey, we're gonna make something that casuals can do, and the hardcore players don't have to sweat it if they don't. But then they changed that. Now it's an integral step in getting to the end game. Can you skip it? Yeah. Is it in the ass? Absolutely. Is it a lot more time if you do? Definitely. So
you basically need to go run it for the artifact power now.
Right. You have to run it. So why is something that's designed for people who are not on my same level now being forced into my responsibilities?
But that's just a stepping stone for you. Like, that's their end game.
It shouldn't be a stepping stone for me, period. If you created something and you created it based off the ideal of this is for the people who won't get thrown out of the group, right? Who won't have to deal with the hardcore play. They don't have to commit the time to it. They can come in, do a few, come back later. Don't make me, the hardcore player who's good at the game, also have to do it.
Okay, but here's the thing. For this last expansion, and we're on Warcraft because I feel like it's such an all-encompassing game that we can pick apart. But like, so last expansion, you had something called an artifact weapon, and in order to make your weapon better, you had to basically run a bunch of content, and you got points for it, etc. So I didn't run LFR at all. I didn't touch it. I didn't step foot in it, and I remained at a competitive level on my artifact weapon. Because I did not want to suffer through, because I am a good player, I don't want to suffer through it. I just didn't go. I didn't touch it. And I found other ways. So I wasn't being forced to do LFR. If I wanted to do things faster, I could have gone to LFR. But Blizzard wasn't like all players must go through LFR in order to achieve this. That's a personal choice. And if you're there by choice, why are you then impeding the people whose end game that is?
To an extent, you were a competitive player in our bracket, but you were not and I was not either. I don't know what I was, but we were not world.
No.
If you want to be a world first top level, you're running because you have to stay. There's competitive at our level.
Okay, but that's their problem.
But it's not. It shouldn't have to because this was created for the casuals. So why are the hard put into it?
They're not.
They are.
They're doing it by choice.
In order to stay competitive, they have to.
Staying competitive is a choice.
So I can't be competitive in my game that supports competition because bad guys.
I would argue that if you want to be a competitive team and you feel like you need to run LFR, then you should queue up as a 20-man and go run your LFR.
And you can, but you also, these are guys who are already doing this 5 nights a week. This is a job. They get paid
yes,
for
absolutely.
This, right?
And for all intent and purpose, I don't even think that they should be considered as part of the gaming community in the course of this conversation because they represent a percentage of a percentage of a percentage of all gamers.
I disagree. The top thousands are ranked. I mean, thousands of people compete in tournaments. Why is it the top percentage?
Because there's still a percentage. I mean, millions of people play, hundreds of millions of people play games.
Right.
Only several thousands are in any type of elite tournament tier. Games aren't built for those people. They're built for the masses. They just happen to be ultra good.
Then why does the game and the developers promote the competition? Why do you?
Well, it's free advertising.
Right. But you're promoting the atmosphere and then lumping those two together. You're saying, we're going to make a game that the casuals can play and enjoy. We're going to make a game with competition that makes people want to be competitive to be the best so that you guys get to boast about it and we get more attention. We know that these two communities don't get along well because they are two completely different types of people. Let's create something that all have to do.
James, do you think that a aspect of a game that's built for less skilled players should be then hijacked by elite players?
No, absolutely not. And the reason why is it goes back to what you were just saying. There are hundreds of millions of people that play games on multiplayer games on a regular basis. There's a few thousand people playing at that elite level. Those few thousand people at that elite level, they have made the choice to play at the elite level. So if there is something that they feel they are required to do to maintain that competitive edge, then they need to just suck it up, lower themselves down to that level. It's the same reason that Blizzard won't go in and make the changes that those elite players want, that the masses don't want, because those masses are not or those elite players are not contributing nearly as much to Blizzard's war chest as the casuals are. The hundreds of millions of casuals.
Again, I disagree.
Are the people kicking in all their money.
I disagree wholeheartedly because these top level guys are also the professional streamers who have hundreds of thousands of people watching them play that developer's game. They massively, through their audiences alone.
But that's only recently the case.
Well, yeah, in recent years, but we're talking about Toxicity today, not Toxicity games 10 years ago. Toxicity in games today, if the sheer numbers are always going to favor the toxic because these are the people who are super, super toxic are the people who are in love with the. It's a shitty thing to say, but their passion or their toxicity is driven or is a result of their passion. It's just channeled the wrong way. What could be channeled into a positive thing is channeled into a negative thing because it's a lot easier to vent your frustration than it is to positive instruction of better. That said, these same guys who are causing this problem are the hundreds of thousands that are watching the professional, that are paying for the merchant, that are going to the conventions, that are paying for like the concept art and the books and the lore and all of that. They are absolutely putting what the casuals contribute to the war chest, so to speak, to a fraction. You know what I mean? If you want to talk about the bottom dollar, the toxic environment is supporting these games more than the casuals are, and that's why there's never too much done about them.
I don't know if that's true. Like maybe for for a game like Call of Duty, everybody goes out and buys Call of Duty. Very few people are considered elite Call of Duty players. Most people play here and there.
There are world tournaments.
Yes, but
thousands of people qualify.
Thousands of people qualify. Hundreds of millions of people own the game.
Hundreds of millions of people own Call of Duty?
Yes.
Hundreds of millions of
worldwide?
People own Call of Duty.
Absolutely.
Really? I'm going to check that.
Yes. So like if you, yes, these people play tournaments, but like $60 a game for a console game, you sell millions and millions and millions of copies. It's the masses giving you the money for the game. Sure, some people might buy t-shirts. People might go like participate in tournaments or whatever, but like all they care about is the sale of the game. That's their bread and butter. Or in the case of Warcraft, subscriptions. So like if you have 1,000 elite players on Warcraft and they, alienate casual players, then they're only going to have 1,000 subs. They're not going to make as much money. It doesn't make sense to cater to the 1%. You know what I mean?
But the 1% is usually it's just like the economy, right? Who's got the most money? The top one. Who's contributing the most money in the esports environment? The top 1%.
I don't know if they are. I mean, most of those guys probably play for free and are paid to play. I don't think they're contributing to the bottom line very much at all.
Through advertisements and the merch they're selling and linking to and sponsoring, that's all making that come.
Right. Okay. So, and this is something that we hadn't really planned on is this idea of competitive gaming. I personally feel so I am what I like to call a semi-casual player. I can play video games at a relatively high level. I'm not going to be pro by any means, never will be. I have no delusions about that, right? I have in multiple games come across players who think they should be elite gamers. They think they're tournament grade. They think they should be in mythic content with top, number one guilds like Method. For instance, they want to see this progress. They want to, we should be in this level. We should be in the highest difficulty. We should be downing it this quickly. And yet those players play 3 days a week. They don't put in the 7-day-a-week grind that the guys from Method do. They don't play for 60 or 70 hours a week. They don't put in the time. They don't make the inroads with the right people. They don't go out of their way to be in an elite group. And yet they carry themselves as if they are elite players.
Have
you seen that in your experience?
Are you talking about me?
It sounds like he's talking about you.
It sounds like he's talking about me. Right?
He's definitely talking about you.
You never thought you could be in Method.
I actually do think I could.
I'm talking about you then.
Yeah. I absolutely do think I could be in Method. Yeah, I am one of those people. I've never actually. That's not true. I was in a top world guild way back in very, very briefly, but But yes, I've always been a person who has been. I don't play a game if I'm not good at it. Period. If I'm not good at that game, I'm not touching it. And if I like a game, I'm going to try to be the best at the game. I'm then going to try to surround myself with people who are as good as me, and I'm going to be the best among those people. Because
why do you play PUBG with us then?
Because I can mold you into creatures used for my destruction, and also your really good notifications as to where people are. Because when you die, I now know where they are and can continue to carry. But I want to be the best. I get my sense of accomplishment from my skill in video games. I grew up playing video games. It's a very large part of my life. So I guess you could say that I sometimes am that person. Like I will walk around like I'm hot shit if I'm in a game where I am in fact hot shit.
Well, in all reality, I wasn't talking about you.
I know.
But my experience has so I know that in Warcraft, I'm very good at what I do. I will never be in an elite guild. I just won't. I can perform at a high level. It's not high enough. It's like baseball. I was pretty good at baseball. I'm never going to play for even a minor league team. There's a reality there where like the elite players are truly elite players. Like they're not just
where your ceiling is.
There's not like an everyday Joe. And yet people that I'm playing that game with or Call of Duty or whatever game it may be, there always seems to be someone I'm playing with who like really isn't that much better than I am, who thinks like, no, I should be in the top world.
Yes. I know lots of those people.
But what happens with those people is most people on the team kind of know where they stand, kind of know what they're there for. And those people are like, we shouldn't be playing with these people. You need to treat that person otherwise. That person is awful. They shouldn't be playing with us. And then I sit there, I'm like, yeah, but like you think you're way better than you are. And that's like, that's worse than them being bad. They know they're bad. You think you're good. Now
I feel like he's talking about me.
I'm not. But that but that's toxic because do players have a responsibility, like in the real world, to understand in skill games especially, what their talent level is and be realistic about it? Because when we're talking about skill level and how it relates to teams, we have this individual versus the team mentality where it's like games like Warcraft are team games comprised of individuals who often only care about themselves, which is an incompatible concept. James, what do you think? Because Jordan's making faces.
Well, I would agree with you. I would say that, well, I don't know if I agree with you, but I would say that, yes, it is up to the individual player to know what their skill level is and know what it is that they're able to contribute. And if, we all have add-ons, we all have meters when we're playing World of Warcraft, we all know what we're doing in comparison to other people on the team. So maybe it's time to take that next step, go do a little bit of research, find out why it is that you're not doing it as good as that other person. Put in a little bit extra time, practice a little bit, and then ultimately, especially when you're discussing something like a mythic rating team, I think that is a reason to sit somebody, a reason to bench somebody, as I said earlier, if they're not willing to put in that time, they're not willing to put in that effort to make themselves better.
And I have seen that too. I've seen the bad player who's in denial that they're bad, just like I've seen the good player that thinks they're better than they are. My next question, and where I kind of want to go is, what level of dignity and integrity should be in a game, and does that play into toxicity? For instance, I want to bench somebody. They're bad. If I'm leading the team, I'm like, hey man, listen, like, I know that you're trying hard, you're doing pretty well, but we're trying to accomplish this. And for tonight's raid, we just really can't afford to bring you with us. Would you mind, taking a step back so that we can go do that? And, I feel like that's reasonable. I've seen other leaders just being like, you suck later. And that's it. They're gone. There's no explanation. There is no human interaction. That player is just treated
right
anonymously,
as if they don't exist.
As if they don't exist.
Because they don't. I'm not talking to the player. I'm talking to the character.
That act by itself is toxic, just with the no human interaction. But I also feel that what you said, telling them, hey, you're doing great, but we really can't bring you. If they're doing great, then you're going to bring them. Maybe they need that reality check that, hey, your numbers aren't really where they're supposed to be.
I mean, the truth of the matter is, if I'm at a level where like we're grinding it out, I'm not gonna personally. I've done that. I've been the guy who's like, hey man, you're not cutting it. See ya. Like, I'm not gonna sit down and break it down for you. You pay to play this game. Invest your own time in it. I'm not gonna invest my time into getting you better. I'm investing my time in getting me better.
Right.
So I can't. If you ask, I'll tell you. But I'm not going to just offer up the explanation. And in that same conversation, there have been plenty of times where I've even gone that route and I've been like, hey man, when trying to run a guild and like you want to retain people in case they do get better. That's when I would be like, hey, man, you're not really where we need you to be. Why don't you go out, do some stuff, come back next week? And I've had people straight up tell me to kill myself and then leave anyway. So, like, toxicity can come from the casuals, too.
Absolutely.
If they don't like being told that they're not good in any way, shape, or form, even if it's in a constructive way, you can get clapped back with, like, a go fuck yourself or, like, kill yourself or eat dicks, whatever.
Right.
It exists in both realms. It's definitely more aggressive from scale. I have contributed to toxic environments. I have been the troll. I've never like told somebody to kill because I believe to do, but I've been the guy who's been like, you're bad. You are awful. You should uninstall this game. It's my opinion.
Can't you just be bad and keep playing?
No, because you queuing up, and this is again a dev problem. There's these things in video games that are competitive, called matchmaking ranking. Or matchmaking rating, or something like that. The more games you play, based on whatever stats the game records, they determine what skill you're is at that game, and they put you in matches with other players of the same skill. Except, this doesn't work in about 90% of games where MMR exists. They tell you it works, but then you end up playing with potatoes. Potatoes are useless. They can't do anything. They just roll around on a keyboard and try to survive, and they don't. So why? I'm now putting my time into a game and the game is failing to give me my experience because they're putting me with the bad people. So yeah, if a kid is like being really, really bad and I'm trying to help them and they don't want to hear it, I'm just going to be like, you're bad, uninstall. You shouldn't be, you're terrible.
Well, they should just be playing in a lower skill level or in a lower rated match.
Yeah, and it's not their fault.
Right, so why should they uninstall the game?
They shouldn't actually, I don't care if they actually uninstall the game or not. I'm just currently tilted at the situation and that makes me feel better.
My question to that, Jordan, would be, why do you feel that it's okay to tell somebody that? Especially, let me ask you this. I'm 6 feet tall, 250 pounds.
Yes, sir.
You were roughly the size and shape of a hobbit.
Yes, sir.
You and I are sitting at a computer place, whatever, and we're playing games together, and I'm being terrible and holding you back. Are you going to turn to the 6 foot tall, 250 pound guy next to you and tell him you're terrible, go kill yourself, uninstall the game?
Well, I already said that I wouldn't tell him to kill himself. I would say you're terrible, uninstall the game. Absolutely. What's he going to do, hit me? Now who's making it the toxic environment? Because I'm telling him he's bad at a video game. He's punching me in the face.
So we're a little over time, but I do want to talk about the last two big concepts, right? And it plays in. So anonymity is huge, not just in gaming, but in the internet.
Yes.
And what it tends, but the unique factor in gaming is the feeling of escapism and what people seek when they want to escape. And a lot of times there's the construction of like an alternate identity that exists in the game world, but it becomes you in the real world. And I feel like there is some separation there.
Now
right?
you're talking about me.
No. So what you see a lot is people doing and saying things or acting in ways that they would not act in real life. And it can go both ways. You're going to have people who are shy and timid, who in games maybe want to take on leadership roles, and they can do so because they break out of their shell.
Sure.
Or you have people with like real anger issues who aren't quite mean enough to take it out on their family and friends, but get on a game and literally destroy people's lives.
Oh no, that's definitely not me.
And those are so what role does anonymity play? And what happens when people construct alter egos for themselves in gaming? And A, should that happen? And B, if it's negative behavior, how can we stop reinforcing?
So I'm going to answer this one quick, and then because I actually brought this up a couple of weeks back when I was talking about how behind a screen you can say anything you want. There's no you can get away with essentially verbal murder. Anonymity behind players and the internet hide behind. They're more comfortable saying things that they said. No one can put it on them. There's no consequence. So it's not, you can't fix something when you can't find the problem. You know what I mean? You could just say, we're going to find a way to curb toxicity in the internet and in video games. We're going to find the bad people and put them away. But when it's usernames and fake information and rerouted IP, how do you get rid of it? Anonymity plays the biggest part in toxicity because it's the leading. If you weren't anonymous, if you had like your face attached to every outlet of a game that you played, you would think twice about it.
Is it right for players to say things simply because it's anonymous?
Fuck no. I do it. I'm guilty of it, but it doesn't make... But it's about as okay as calling someone else a piece of shit for being a fan of it or throwing a rock at someone because they're Muslim. You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense?
James, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I would agree with Jordan, and this is kind of what I was touching on just a little bit ago, that anonymity plays a massive part in it, because I would say that the vast majority of people in the world don't have the same death wish that Jordan does, and they wouldn't turn to that other person and tell them, hey, you're terrible, uninstall the game. When, I mean, Jordan talks about potatoes, he is literally the size and shape of a potato.
Idaho homegrown, baby.
So ultimately, yes, anonymity is massive, and that is why this happens. I would say that while it still happened, as I was saying at the beginning of this subject, I was saying that it still happened in those tournaments where you played on the same console. It's a lot worse now, and it's not just the teenagers and the young adults doing this now. Now it is that 8-year-old kid telling you that he's going to gouge out your mother's eyeballs and skull fuck her.
Dude,
like,
well, 8-year-old kids.
It's also the 40-year-old men.
Yeah, 8-year-old kids have been telling me that since I was like
at this
12,
point.
though.
And we haven't really touched on it. It's almost a different subject, but the stuff that girls and women have to deal with in gaming,
I want to make that a whole separate thing, because I adamantly want to talk
light
about.
years beyond anything.
Right.
Yeah,
Jerry, add it to the list.
We can sit here and bitch about toxicity in games, but it is nothing compared to the video game war against women that was going on a few years back and is still going on today. That is a legend, and I don't even want to touch on the surface of it because I know I'll go on a tangent. As far as this situation is, it is not okay to have the level of toxicity. We become... You ever get frustrated in a situation in the real world and you real bad, but you know you can't say it because you'll get fired?
Yep.
So you get in your car on your way home from work and you're just thinking shit that you wanted to say, and then maybe you yell it. You're like, you fucking asshole. You're a piece of shit. Like all the shit you couldn't say.
Right.
You're directing that toward somebody else. Now you have an outlet. These pixelated avatars are punching for you to vent your... And everybody's guilty of it. Even outside of video games, they're guilty of it. But I think it's... more dangerous in video games.
So we posted
on that end, Jerry. I want to ask you a question. Actually, you've asked me a couple of questions.
Oh shit!
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
Welcome to the Coffee Milk Hour with your hosts Puffy and James. Donnie, change the title. Can we get a new banner? James, what's your favorite color? We're going to change it to you.
Can you please stop screeching? Yeah.
I
Anyway,
like James. You should host.
Jerry, I know that Jordan feels that this isn't something that can be fixed, but I want to ask you how. Like we've talked about this in depth now for what feels like an hour and a half.
Getting close.
How do you fix it?
So there's been a couple of things I've read about, and the first thing is, and we had actually posted a question up on our Facebook page, kind of asking if people had dealt with this, and someone responded that I'm 30, we grew up kind of pre-gaming, pre-internet, right? So
Yeah. I've
all
lived
of
in
our
the same existence as having an
interactions were face to face, and if you called someone a name, you got decked or threatened, or there were consequences, or you were scolded by your family and stuff like that. And I've carried that into gaming, right? And so I carry that level of integrity. It's part of who I am as a person. There's a common way to treat people. I honestly can't say I know how to fix the absence of that in a younger generation who grew up only knowing anonymity. Because at a young age, they're getting positive reinforcement from other trolls or whatever at what, age 10, age 11.
Well, most of these kids are watching PewDiePie on YouTube.
And so, there's the concept, integrity is what you do when no one else is watching. Okay. But that's a moral value. And
Do not have. Please explain what it is.
And I feel like good people carry that into gaming. But if there's a disconnect in culture at younger ages now, parents need to be proactive with their children who are gaming online, letting them know that real world rules apply. For me, other people gaming are people. They're not characters on a screen, they're people. And every interaction you have with someone on that screen is a person, and I treat them as if they're gaming with me in the room. And just extend the common decency. Those are moral lessons that need to be taught by parents or communities, and video games, I think, need to be part of that conversation. For general toxicity, though, I think players need to be watching themselves, and, with the Me Too movement and LGBTQ movement in the mainstream, I feel like that's now entering the game stream. PewDiePie said the N-word last week or the week before.
60 million subscribers and going strong.
And he offered an apology. He faced a lot of criticism, but now video games are discontinuing his right to continue streaming their game.
Yes.
They're pulling games from him. More of that needs to happen.
They're pulling games from him for right now. It's going to go back because, like Jordan said, ultimately those people they contribute a little bit to
60
those developers.
million people watch and play those games.
So
I mean, look at what happened with Logan Paul. Logan Paul, I mean, he did something terrible. He showed a dead body like on YouTube, somebody that had committed suicide, and then he came out and was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and he's actually gained subscribers since then, not lost.
No such thing as bad publicity.
So I think what needs to happen is gaming companies and social media companies need to grow a pair and get rid of people who promote toxicity, because no one is irreplaceable. For every PewDiePie, someone else will come along and fill the void. Streaming is so mainstream now that, like, if PewDiePie stopped streaming today, he would not be missed. Someone would fill the void immediately, and in 2 weeks' time, that's how media in general works. Twitch streaming is no exception. Game companies, devs need to start taking stands. Ban accounts, ban players, ban credit cards, especially when you have 2,000 complaints. Like, one time, okay, whatever, 3-day suspension. 2,000 complaints, you shouldn't be allowed to touch electronics anymore. You shouldn't, you shouldn't be allowed on a cell phone at that point. So, like,
I think there's an easier solution.
What's that?
Jay and Silent Bob.
Fuck out of here.
What about them?
Get their names, get their addresses,
Go to
show
their
up,
house.
and punch them in the face.
There we go, old school.
Replacing digital
Problem
toxicity with physical toxicity.
Yes,
Next week on the
problem
Coffee Milk Hour.
It's the J.
Join
Bob.
us
You know
on
what?
our first vlog as we kick the shit out of people who talk shit.
They won't do it anymore.
It's the J. Bob Mafia.
Outstanding.
But that comes back to real human interaction, right? Like, you would not call someone a fuckface to their face unless you were already accepting of the fact that they may come at you. And if you don't have to face that possibility at all, you're just going to say it.
Hey, fuckface. Don't tell me what I wouldn't do in front of somebody.
Yeah, but we grew up in that group of friends who are really shitty to each other, so it's okay. So
You guys are up near Boston. Fuckface is like a term of endearment.
It sure
yeah,
is.
It is. So to wrap up, there was a quote. There's a YouTube series called Extra Credit, and they do a bunch of like educational videos, and they touch on a bunch of stuff.
That sounds super interesting.
But
It is. You should watch the video.
tell me more.
But they had a video called Gaming Struggles to Escape Toxicity. And the final quote was, "For years, we have been the culture, the gaming culture, that took in the people that no one else would. When someone didn't fit in and when they didn't meet society's standards of cool, the gaming community would embrace them. That's how the world should know us, and that's what we should think of ourselves." And I remember when video games were like not cool and you were a nerd and like you were definitely not going to be one of the cool kids for playing a video game, and that was a cool place to be. You could go home, you could game with your friends, game with other people, and it was all encompassing. And now it's very much the opposite. What is perpetuating this toxicity?
You know, that does happen in video games right now, and it kind of... All right, first of all, I was always cool, even when I was playing games.
You were also way nicer in vanilla Warcraft than you are now.
Yeah, because I was learning the game. Now I'm good at the game.
You were also way nicer in Wrath of the Lich King than you are now.
That's not true. I was
It's
really
absolutely
mean in
true.
Wrath of the Lich King. I was really, really mean in Wrath of the... Well,
Yeah, that puts
I
things
was a
in
little
perspective,
nicer. I
doesn't
was
it? Yeah.
younger, though. But as I've grown older, I've become more bitter. And you see, that bitterness is very easily exuded in these games that I play. And so, like, I'm not a total douche. I could be way worse than I am. But, like, yeah, occasionally, like, when I kill somebody and I can communicate with that person, I will tell them to get wrecked. You know what I mean? Or, like, I'll call them a
squat on their
nerd or something. Like, or you'll teabag them. Like, that's just... It's going to sound terrible because it perpetuates the culture a little bit, but it's just what you do. You know what I mean? People high five when they score a touchdown, or they do a celebration dance that mocks the other team. I put my character's fucking balls in your face. What are you going to do about it?
One of these...
You play female characters, and wow.
I sure do.
Some final stats. A study carried out by an anti-bullying charity found that 57% of young people surveyed had experienced bullying online playing games. So almost 60% of all people. 2,500 young members of the virtual hotel platform Habbo, aged between 12 and 25. That was the sample group. The report found that 47% of those surveyed said that they had been threatened in an online game. 38% said that they had been hacked. 74% said that they would like the issue to be taken more seriously. Also, all 3 out of 4. And 29% said bullying and trolling did not affect their enjoyment in online games. 1 out of 3. So we have statistics on this. We know it's happening. We know it's prevalent. How do we one solution put forth was, what if game developers look at players who report people, and let's say I report 10 people, and all 10 people I reported they did something wrong. What if the developer said, hey, you're good at reporting people, we're going to make every person you report worth like 20 reports. It's going to be weighted because you're a responsible gamer, you're doing this responsibly.
Sure.
And now if I see one bad person, I can report them and they get banned or whatever, instead of having to wait for 20 reports. Are tools like that solid options moving forward to curb the toxicity?
Putting it into the player's hands, yeah. I think you're going to save more money in the long run, even though you still need to allocate the resources to track who's reporting who and for what, and consistency. Moreover, it's something that could probably stem the tide a little bit, but I still don't think long run. And I'm not trying to be like a dick about it. I'm just trying to be realistic. I don't think in the long run that toxic.
Well, we've had toxicity in culture. We've had racism in culture. We've had gay hate in culture. We have slut shaming in culture.
Yeah, but is any of that gone?
It's not
better.
gone, but it is significantly less, and I think
Is it?
that would be a big improvement.
So it's
Is
not
it though? Because Trump just got elected, and there was a lot of fucking racism that popped up.
No politics.
So I guess my question to you would be, why? We know that change can happen in the real world on a large scale. Why is gaming exempt from that?
I don't think gaming is exempt. There are more. Here's the way I see it, right? Video games are a leisure activity. If someone's being mean to you, just log off the game and come back later. I understand what your counter argument is, right? But like, that's just, yes, why should you have to do it? Well, I don't have a good answer for you. It is just the way it is now, but I'm not currently. There are other things I'm more worried about than somebody calling.
Right, but when someone buys a game, they're not buying the right to mistreat somebody.
No, I agree.
So why should the player who bought it and is doing nothing wrong be the one who's, and that's the case.
They shouldn't.
That's
they
the reality.
Shouldn't have to
is
pay
that
that consequence.
They are stopping playing.
Correct.
In the question that you shared, multiple friends of yours said, I don't really play online anymore. I just play solo for this reason, that. It's having a real effect on real gamers.
No, if the question is why are they the ones that have to deal with, I don't have an answer for you. They shouldn't have to be the ones that have to deal with it. It shouldn't have to come down to them leaving the game. But it's the only solution I have for you to say. You know what I mean?
James, do you have any, any idea of how short-term or even long-term this can be solved?
I would say that the solution that you proposed of putting it directly into a player's hand who has a habit of reporting a lot of people, that does have the potential to be abused. So there would still need to be some sort of quality control. Somebody would still have to go in and review all of these people that this person is reporting now, since they are weighted a lot heavier. And ultimately, that person is going in and reviewing them. He could just be handling the reports himself.
Right.
So I don't think that there is a one solution fits all for gaming. I think it's going to have to be a combination. And like I said earlier, I think that the gaming community as a whole and developers are going to have to work together to figure this out. The problem is the gaming community as a whole doesn't like developers, and they're very toxic towards them.
Yeah, because the developers are dicks.
But they're the same dicks that provide you with the games that you love to play.
Right,
so
and if I don't like what they're doing, I've done it. I used to play Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic online, or whatever the online Star Wars at the Old Republic. I stopped playing it because it went downhill. They put up an AMA. I asked a question, answered, I did it.
Okay, but you didn't harass the developer.
No, I told him that his answer was dumb. I was like, you not only didn't answer my question, but like you provided no insight whatsoever. Like I wasn't even asking in depth, very certain. You are very obviously not good at PR. Please don't do.
Right.
Because like now you've wasted my time. The company afforded me the opportunity to speak to someone and then wasted my time by providing me with someone who couldn't answer a simple question.
Right. I mean, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? I have issues with developers because we live in a world where developers constantly talk about wanting to work together with the players, but then get super butthurt every time we criticize anything. And I'm not talking about being toxic at this point. I'm talking about being constructively critical of their work when they ask for it.
But when they do give feedback, are we aware of the budget? Are we aware of the size of their staff? Are we aware of like the infrastructure of the networks and servers they're building on? Are we aware of the limitations that they face?
No, but if you don't want that conversation to happen, don't ask the question. You see what I'm saying?
Can they want the conversation to happen and then just when they give feedback say, well, that's not really feasible right now, or hey, we don't,
Absolutely. And for the most part, the community will respond with like, all right, word, we hear you, but we're just putting it on your radar. This is something you might want to look into. If their response is like, yes, while we can't do it now, we will definitely put, and Blizzard's done this throughout Legion. They were like, hey, we're working on this. It's not ready yet, but we're going to get there. We heard you. We heard the complaints. It's in development. Just give us a little time. Word, cool. Good info. Thanks, Chief. Super happy right now. I'm really glad that you were able to communicate that with me. When I go to EA and I'm like, hey, man, don't really like your loot boxes. And they go, yeah, well, fuck you. And then bitch when their stock goes down.
Right.
Who's at fault? You know what I mean? My issue with devs is that devs have a tendency to put the toxicity blame. They're like, oh, the player base and the fans are so toxic immediately after they said something or did something fucked up. And got backlash for it. You know what I mean?
But how often are devs blaming the player base? I mean, even the quotes we read
pretty
today,
consistently. Look at the articles that you up today.
Right. But that's not blaming. It's saying, hey, this is an obstacle that exists, and we need to work on it.
It's putting a spotlight on the problem and not on the solution. You know what I mean?
Well, in this case, all Blizzard wants to do is push more content, and they're having to develop reporting system.
They're choosing to develop reporting system
because players demand it.
Yeah.
Because the good players demand that the bad players be stopped.
Was that Kaplan who had the quotes about the 8 or 9 year old? Like, I shit you not.
No. That was a different developer.
Yeah, that dev guy. Like, the way he's, like, the shit he was saying, like, he was just being like, this is the shit that I get all the time. It's only the stuff that I get all the time. Nobody ever talks to me about anything other than, like, bullshit catchphrases they heard by a YouTuber because I'm smarter than them.
Well, and he is.
Well, arguably, yes, he probably has a better degree. The kid's fucking 8 or 11 or whatever he said.
13
My
to
point
16.
is, instead of using that opportunity to be like, hey, look, I noticed you use a couple of these phrases. Do you actually know what they are? Let me give you some good reference. Do the research and educate yourself.
Right.
He's just going to be like, can you believe this shit an 11-year-old said about me? God, he doesn't even know what I do for a living. I only lived in my mom's basement until I was 25.
Or maybe he's out of the house at 18.
Fuck that guy.
When you get 3 gamers together to talk about toxicity in gaming, it yields you the longest episode of the Coffee Milk Hour to date. So
Do we need to break this up? Do we need to break this up?
No, well, I mean,
It's almost 2 hours.
We'll see. Maybe we don't need to record
I
next
needed to
week.
go
We'll
a
just
while
do part
ago.
one,
I'm
part two.
very hungry.
So what we'll do here, so we'll stop today. James, thank you for being our very first guest remotely on the show to talk about this topic, and thank you for your insights on the topic.
I'll come back when you guys want to discuss the best porn stars.
Excellent.
Can we next week, DeWay, do you know it?
No.
And can we?
That is a good question, Jerry. Do you know DeWay?
At some point, we're going to have to come up with an episode about toxicity with gaming and girls.
Yes, I do want to.
And what they have to deal with. And I may post a video of some of the harassment that girls see down in the. So
you should invite Maverick for that one. He knows all about girls getting harassed during video games.
What?
He has firsthand experience.
Oh, because he's a girl.
There we go.
Yeah.
Toxicity in video games, everybody.
There we are. So thank you for listening to the Coffee Milk Hour. Thank you, James.
Nobody made it to the end of this episode.
And
yeah, James, I'm glad you were here, though, buddy. This was a good talk. I had a good time with this.
Was.
This can go up, and nobody could get to this point, and I'm satisfied with it.
Maybe we'll break it up, part one, part two.
Maybe break it up, part one, part two.
I enjoyed this, guys. Thanks for having me. I am going to go, though, because I need to go be toxic in some video games.
Excellent.
Yeah,
you have
buddy.
fun with that. I will report you.
So, do we know what we're going to talk about next week, Jerry?
We don't.
We don't know what we're going to talk about next week. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week.
But either way, it will be under an hour.
Yeah, probably need to start cutting these down a bit because we're getting a little out of control.
Thank you for listening. I'm Jerry.
Oh, you're just trying to kick us out now. What if I want to talk a little bit? Is
And this
Donnie
has
ready
been the
to shut
Coffee
down?
Milk Hour.
Donnie, are you ready to shut down? Do you have all the lights? Like you got the switches?
I'm just going to let him keep talking. Bye, guys.
All right.